Hi, my name is Mark, and as you were probably able to see by the title, we're talking about playing out of tune. Well, I know that sounds a little bit weird, but basically it's all about this video that actually was posted a couple of months ago, and I saved it back then in my Instagram saved videos thingy, but then I forgot to make a video about it, and I'll give some context to that video, but for now let me just show you what it's all about. And for those of you who don't really know who the hell was playing in that video, basically it was this like guitar battle thingy between Seth, Rosenbloom, and I mean it's pretty weird to be pronouncing like Brazilian names and Portuguese names with this sort of English version of it, but sure, whatever. The other guy is Artur Menezes, and if for some reason you aren't really into the blues scene of recent guitar players, both of these guys are like total beasts. Artur got to play in the Crossroads Festival along with Eric Clapton and a ton of other guys, and Seth is just like a beast of a monster. Crazy guitar player and crazy tone actually. I really like his bridge pickup tone on his strats. It's really awesome. But again, this video has a purpose, right? I'm pretty sure that you noticed that they played some pretty weird stuff in the video. Sure, they played their standard blues licks, and it's pretty common to when playing a blues lick, like, I don't know. You probably noticed that I did a bunch of these. And when it comes to this, it's not really like a half-step bend. It's not like we're going, and it's not like we're just going like vibrato. We're actually doing like this tiny micro bend. And again, it's a pretty common blues stuff. If you're into blues, or if you're into blues guitar players, you've probably heard a couple of these things here and there. Well, like I mentioned before, they took that concept and just put it into an extra level that it's pretty extreme. It may not be the most appropriate flavor, but it's something that's pretty interesting. Those of you who follow my channel for a while will probably know that I'm highly into Jacob Collier. And if you like Jacob's music and you try to learn something about it, you'll probably realize that many times he sings stuff that's not in tune, but it's in tune, and sometimes he does this like microtonal stuff for us guitar players and piano players who are playing in this like 12-tone equal temperament system. We go like, okay, if you want to go from like D to C, we just need to go chromatic if you want to hit all of those notes between them, right? That's how you equally divide the space between notes. Right? Well, yes, if you just want to divide it into two parts, but you can divide it into more, and he talks much more about this. Jacob many times does things like, okay, we can divide it into more notes, like if you go from C to D, we can divide it into like 5 equal parts, and we get into all this microtonal stuff.
Microtonal voice leading, what in the world is that?
The human ear just hears things moving and then things arriving. You know Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Join in any reindeer games. What you're hearing is, join in any reindeer games. You see that? But what you could do is, join in any reindeer games. It's not like G and then the chord between F sharp and G and then F sharp. It's more like you erase all idea of like notatable harmony, and you just think, I'm at G and my destination is E, so I go ba da 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 da. You divide it equally up.
Oh.
You know, or into more than like 5 da 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 da. You know, all that matters is that you're arriving in a place. It doesn't matter how you get there. That's actually why harmony works, is because it's like I'm here and then I just somehow I arrive at the place, and all you need is someone to do something satisfying that's not like da 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 ba. That's not an arrival, you know. But anything chromatic, as I'm sure you know, is like very important. It's like chromatic voice singing is the best. The idea is that you start somewhere and then you end somewhere. Luckily, you need to think about that, and I don't.
Right.
And again, this is probably not the things that you're very much interested into. We're talking about guitar, we're not talking about singing, but if you're into it, you can check out Jacob's interviews with Joan Lee, and you can check out, I think, Amy Nolte did a video about it, and her videos are pretty cool, so go check her out if you haven't already. But basically, since I watched those videos, I was always like, well, that's a pretty cool concept, but how can I apply it to guitar in a way that makes sense? I mean, sure, I can try to do the same thing, but it's pretty hard to do it on guitar because of this micro-bending stuff and stuff like that. It's probably a little bit like a pain in the ass to try it out, but maybe I'll do it later and whatever. But after watching this video of Artur and Seth playing, I quickly realized that, well, what he's talking about is something that we can actually achieve as guitar players, and they just did. And again, it's not like I'm just telling you, okay, just bend crazily and bend out of tune and in, out of tune, and whatever, and just do it like however you want. It's not like there's a little bit of a science to it, but there's a couple of ways which you can try out. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into it, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. As you're probably aware, YouTube acts a little bit weird. Even if you subscribe to the channel, this channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box, and even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still will not be notified of the channel's content, so if you want to stay tuned to my videos, not only do I suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, I can provide solos and gem cover backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post about my videos. Links for usual suspects will be below, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But in general, at MartinHutar, and since you're downloading, please consider leaving a like and share this video on social media, I'd highly appreciate it. But getting back to the video itself, like I mentioned before, if we want to try and do this microtonal stuff thingy, and do these weird bends and play out of tune, but still sound alright, but at the same time we start thinking, well, but if we're out of tune, that it won't sound right, and if we're playing over, like, I don't know, a B, we want to play notes of the B chord. Not microtonal versions of it, like, it doesn't really make sense and it's pretty weird and whatever. And don't worry, I get what you mean, but if you think about it, and again, maybe some of you will think it's kind of weird for me to talk about Jacob Collier when it comes to this sort of stuff, since he's not really a guitar player, but deep down, us guitar players are just trying to play music and just trying to make music, and Jacob is a master when it comes to it, so let's take his advice into consideration. And many times he says, well, even though it's important to end and start in the right place, many times it doesn't really matter where you end and where you start, and many times it doesn't really matter the path you take. It just means that you've got to end there correctly. That may sound a little bit crazy and weird to understand, but let me just show you. Let's say that we're playing over, I don't know, just a regular 12-bar blues. Let's just go between the first two chords, like A7 and D7. If we're playing over A7, you may have noticed that when I try to go between the A7 and D7, I really try to hit those chord tones, right? Like when we're playing over A7, if you look at it, this is a position for the A major chord. And then going for the D7, this is a position for the D major chord. D7. Well, I can maybe try to do some of those microtonal bends and extreme bends and stuff like that, or those out-of-tune bends, and if I just do them, it may not sound completely right. Of course, I try to give you the most terrible example of how to do it, and that way it won't sound right. And that's pretty much the point. If you just do microtonal bends and those extreme bends and stuff like that, just because it probably won't sound good. Again, when you do those microtonal bends between like the minor third and major third, again, if you're in A, we do that bend in this like C sharp thing. It sounds good there, but it might not sound good in every situation, right? Well, but then how do you know where to use them? Well, it's just like I mentioned before about what Jacob says. When you're playing or you're saying something, you're making a bridge between two things. Like in this case, when we're playing in A blues, when we're playing from between A to D, we're trying to play in A, of course, and try to play in D, of course, but when you go from A to D, we usually want our playing to be like a bridge between the two chords. Like, if you notice on that last part, I did this. And I basically did this like chromatic walk line thingy into the D chord. I went from the A chord into the D chord. That's a pretty standard connection between those chords, but we can use those microtonal bends and those extreme bends as a way to connect those chords. But just like this, where we play this part, probably doesn't sound really good against the A dominant 7th chord, nor the D dominant 7th chord. But because it adds that little tension between those two, because it's a tension that we're going to resolve to get to that D7 chord, maybe we can do the same thing with bending. Like, I don't know, if you look at the D7 chord, it has the notes D, F sharp, A, and C. Let's say that we want to hit that F sharp right there, and we're playing some microtonal bends, we can maybe play something like... Again, that was a pretty radical example of something that you can try to do. It's probably not the best sounding thing, but you can probably get where I'm aiming at, right? When you start the lick, it sounds good. You're playing an A and you're playing around that A sound. It sounds good. And when you get to the D chord, you play all of those D related notes. When you're making that bridge between the A and D chord, you can pretty much play wherever you want if you resolve it correctly. If you just do like... it probably won't be the best sound you'll ever get. And I'm definitely not suggesting you switch up whatever you're playing just with these, unless you really like the sound of these sorts of things. But it's definitely something that many times we don't really consider. Like, why would we play these out-of-tune things, and why would we bend crazily like this? It doesn't really make sense, right? Well, it doesn't make sense if you think about our, like, regular 12-tone equal temperament system. But if you think about, okay, I want to get to that note, in this case we want to get to that F sharp, of that D chord, a third of that D chord. You should just think like, oh, I'm just trying to get that F sharp however I can. Again, is that like the most Guthrie Govan amazing lick that you ever heard and that you really want to learn, and that your vocabulary of licks? Maybe not, but that's not the point really. This just goes to show that in the right context, anything you can play can work. For some of you, this sort of lick may sound really good, and for some of you, it might sound like the most terrible thing you've probably ever heard. And again, if I try to do it without really thinking where I'm going, or whether if it's appropriate or not, or if it's the sound I'm audiating or not, it probably won't sound good. It will probably just sound like I'm a complete beginner. But like I many times mentioned in these sorts of lesson thingies, these are just my thoughts, and I'm pretty sure I'll get a lot of comments and dislikes on this video saying like, oh, that just sounds bad and you just suck and whatever. But hey, we're just trying to have fun, right? And yeah, I guess we can probably end it with this. Again, it's probably a little bit of an awkward video. I'm not really showing you any lick, and I'm teaching you about a concept that's pretty weird to talk about. But yeah, if you just want to try it out, I think it's probably the best way for you to learn these sorts of things and try to bring them into your playing. If you want to, of course. And like I mentioned before, if you like this video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications. Again, YouTube many times doesn't really share the videos like it is supposed to do. Go check out some of my other videos if you want to, follow me on social media. And yeah, because I've been probably rambling till now, and I don't really want to bore to death the ones of you who stayed this far, let's just end it with this. Cheers!